VGA cable, which one will switch to the current slides, where now I'm going to press on past the part about who is teaching assistant and where are the labs, since that stuff has changed a little bit from the slides that I'm showing you, the oldest slides I'm showing you now. All right, so we'll come back to that. The materials. We are using lecture notes that you'll be getting in class. We'll be using a textbook that was generated on the backs of students just like you over the last 3 years. More about the book shortly. We'll have a few key papers that we'll read, so research papers that we'll read during the course of the term, and there will be practicals. So let me go through these in a little bit more detail. We'll have 31-hour lectures. This is the first one. So after today, only 29 more to go. The others will be a little bit more challenging. Today is quite informative, trying to help you decide if you are indeed in the right place. The 30 hours of practicals, so you'll have 3 hours every week. The idea is that you can read quite a lot and think you understand, but until you have to implement it yourself and get the results, you won't really solidify your knowledge and you won't realize which parts you don't know. So it's very important to attend these. I'll say a little bit more about those in a moment. You should expect to spend about 10 hours a week on this class outside of the class itself. So that means doing readings, implementing some of the algorithms, studying, reviewing your slides, and notes, that kind of thing. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but people slip and they start sort of falling behind because they don't invest those extra hours. And the bad part about that is then you can start to fall behind. Now, the course is structured in an attempt to make that hard. It's supposed to be as compartmentalized as it can be, but inevitably we do build week to week on what we've learned previously. So please try to take this 10 hours seriously. Students who've done really well, who excel at this class, tend to be the ones who did invest some of those hours every week just to stay current with what's going on. The intention all along is to make it very clear what we're doing and where we're going. So you shouldn't be sort of surprised. Come in. Hi. You don't have a video cable on you, do you? All right. Well, I'm sorry. There's no seat for you. We really are 3 chairs short now. There's no like chair in the corner back there. Okay. And are there any loose chairs? All right. Thank you. In the room behind us. There are. It's up to you. If you guys are willing to sort of pull them out, then or are you okay to stand for a while? Okay. Don't worry about it. We'll press on then. All right. He's getting it. All right. So, our book called Computer Vision Models looks like this. So this started out really as a collection of lectures, just like you're receiving now, and it has progressed to the point of being its own standalone book. Simon Prince, a colleague of mine, is the author of it. I had a little hand in helping it along. This has just been published in June. Okay, so it costs £55. Seems like a lot of money for a book, I agree. The free PDF version is online. So you can go there, access it, print parts of it if you like. But we are using this book, and I want to say a few things about the motivation of it. It's 20 chapters. During the course of this term, we're going to do 19 of those chapters. So we're doing this book, and it's not an accident, as I've said, right? The book is designed around what we do in this class, so there's a reason for that strong overlap. All right, this is starting to get a little comical. Yeah. You know what? I just realized I'm selfishly hogging a chair I have right up here. I don't want to block the door. You might have to sit here. This is the person who answers all the questions, so go for it. So besides covering the topic, which every class says, oh yeah, our book is very important, it covers the topic. The intention is that if you survive this class, you go through it and work through the practicals, you will be able to go to any machine vision conference, you'll be able to pick up research papers, you'll be able to ask intelligent questions at seminars, because you won't necessarily know what the person is talking about already, but you will understand all the ingredients of what they're using. The algorithms, the models, and largely the equations will be familiar to you because you'll have seen them in this class. So when you take a look at this book, and I'm happy for people to come up after class, take a look, decide what you think. When you look at this book, you will see a lot of equations, but you also see a lot of graphs. The idea is that we're going to try to ease into everything gradually. The point is not to confuse you, the point is to make it all very accessible. So I want you to sort of look at this to some extent and say, oh my gosh, this is great, I'm actually going to understand this by the time we're done. Of course, you're allowed to also say, oh my gosh, there's an awful lot of math here, am I getting in over my head? And so I'll mention that in a few moments. There are a few other books out there. So these are written by some very nice researchers, colleagues of ours. So Richard Shalisky runs the machine vision group at Microsoft Research in the US. Forsyth and Ponce is a slightly older book now. Hello. Right. So I'm a little scared to ask for how many students we have now in this room. Okay. There are a few other books which are a little more specialized. Active contours is specifically on tracking. Multiview geometry is what it says on the cover. There are other books that are potentially worthwhile. Some of you in the room are, well, let's see a show of hands. So, MSc CGVI, if those letters mean something to you. Okay, MSc ML. MSc CSML. Aha. Okay. Undergrads. Be proud. Yes. Excellent. Good. The undergrads usually do incredibly well in this class, so I want everybody to be prepared to watch those two succeed. So there is a lot of connection between machine vision and machine learning. These are two excellent books in machine learning. There's a new one by Kevin Murphy that is coming out next month that I've seen a preprint of, which is also very good, especially if you're continuing machine learning or if you want an alternate view of Bayes' rule and some of the machine learning we're covering here. The Kevin Murphy book is probably a good bet. I have updated these slides, but I can sort of hold up the laptop. It's not really working. All right. Linear algebra, if you've had some, will be great. Somehow, I don't know how, I got through college without taking linear algebra, and I've sort of regretted it ever since. I've had to play catch up and work my way through the equations and everything the hard way. Hi there. I'm getting the sense we don't have enough room, enough seats in this room, so we might end up changing rooms. See what I can do. All right. Let's see. Why can this class be hard? People struggle sometimes with the math. I'll say that there are people who struggle in the class and don't pass it, and it's not normally because of the math. So while the math seems scary and hard, people usually are able to get used to it. So the quote is, in mathematics you don't understand things, you just get used to them. And this is John von Neumann, who let's say got used to a lot of math and ended up being very good. Okay, so how do we get from here to there? How do we get from a place where maybe you remember some linear algebra or you never had it maybe you remember vaguely you had some calculus, and now you try to distance yourself from that by doing more applied science. The idea is that we're going to motivate it. We're going to try to show you reasons why you should be using this math, and we're going to introduce it bit by bit. Now I say that the first 2 weeks, so this week and next week, are going to be the most math heavy. We're going to try to swallow the pill and then apply that math, and we'll keep expanding on it. But after these first 2 weeks of introduction, of sort of getting you to join the cult, then the math is going to be much simpler. So if I were to sort of draw a math complexity curve, it would sort of be this big spike up and then kind of falling down and leveling off for the rest of the term. So we will try to get you used to it. We'll try to explain why we're doing it. Don't be shy about asking, what does that mean? Why is that there? What is that Greek symbol, right? There's every reason to think you're not used to the Greek alphabet, but you'll see that it's useful for us to sort of use what look like alien symbols sometimes. All right. Maybe one more thing to say about the math. Some of you are taking image processing, which I used to teach, and it's a great class. Image processing is a little bit more of a cookbook type of topic, in that there are good ways to do things, so we teach you the good ways to do things. This is an algorithm for doing edge detection. This is an algorithm for finding interest points. Machine vision is a little bit more of a science, in that we are trying to say, you know what, there are ways of combining your information. If you want to, here's an example that came up. So someone did their master's project last summer on this topic. They were trying to classify irises according to color. Now, if you've ever looked at someone's iris, this is where I would pull up a nice slide of a human iris. It's not actually one color, right? It's not that simple. They were doing this because they were trying to trace population movements over long periods of time. And so it might be tempting to say, oh, I'm going to make this machine vision algorithm, right? I'm going to make this thing that analyzes an image of an iris, and it checks, it says, if the RGB values in the image are between this range and, and somewhere in this range of colors, that is a brown eye, and that is a gray eye, okay? And so we'll just define these thresholds. That seems like a reasonable algorithm, right? We could all kind of come up with this algorithm and maybe even implement it in MATLAB or C. But then what if I said, well, you're only looking at one eye, right? Shouldn't you take advantage of the other eye? Then you say, okay, well, fine, I'll make this if-then statement look at both eyes. But what if they're slightly different, the two eyes, right? Or what if you have some knowledge about the lighting in the room, because the lighting in the room will determine the color response on the eye. And so if you want to make a simple algorithm, there's no question that you probably don't need to take this class. You already know what you need to know. How to compare RGB values won't be that hard. If you've never done it before, the MATLAB built-in tutorial for image processing in MATLAB will tell you. But how to take advantage of other information, how to constrain things so that there's a little bit more weight given to the decision about eye color that's supported by both images of both eyes. Or where we take advantage of a database where we have lots of examples of hazel eyes and lots of examples of brown and green eyes, so that we can compute those parameters, those thresholds, but maybe not even thresholds, in a more principled way. That's the reason we're having to embrace all of this math. Right. So, the exam. Everybody always worries about the exam. You're right to worry about the exam. The way to deal with it, as I said, is to invest time along the way during the term. It's 80% of the grade. The other 20% is from 2 practicals that you'll submit. I'll talk about that in a moment. 2.5 hours, you'll have 5 questions presented to you, and you have to pick your favorite 3, answer those, and you're fine. No restrictions, i.e. you can use calculators if you want. Questions are designed not to need calculators. No sort of open bookness about it though. The exams are online if you want to go, not this year's exam, obviously. Previous year's exams are in the library, but you don't have to actually go physically into the library. That would be terrible. You can just go online to the UCL library and do a search for machine vision. Most of the previous exams were not written by me, so you can see if that's useful to you or not. But as I said, the last 3 or 4 years of the class are trying to focus on sort of the 20 chapters that we have in this book. So you can kind of calibrate whether this is the class for you that way. I would encourage you to visit today, and if you're still not sure, if you're deciding on the class, at least visit on Thursday, because that's when we will launch into chapter 2 at that point. And the exam is actually end of May, early June. Right, the practical classes, as we said, there'll be 3 to 6 p.m. on Thursdays. There'll be a new assignment each week. You're expected to try to finish that assignment in the lab. There will be a register taken. So partly this finishing of it is for your own edification, but if you're keeping up, if you're doing well, you will feel the sense of accomplishment that you finished it, and you'll be ready for the next lectures. All the assignments will be in MATLAB. So this week we're doing a bit of an introduction to MATLAB. It's slightly different than the CGVI introduction to MATLAB. I see you CGVI people rolling your eyes all the way back. Okay, it's going to be slightly different. I would still encourage you to visit, tick the boxes and say, okay, great, I'm comfortable enough with MATLAB to do what I need. If you've never seen MATLAB, this session is for you. We have had the occasional person who drifts in sort of the 4th week of the term and says, oh, but I've never used MATLAB before, and that's why I haven't done any of the practicals. Come this week in the lab. Let's see, there will be normally myself and 3 teaching assistants. By this point in the slide, well, you know what, I can do this. We'll do a little improvisation. So our TAs, there are 3 of them. And the 3rd one just started as a PhD student yesterday. So, can you see that? Yes, that's Oshin, that's Michael, and that is Clement. Clement, you have to use your imagination here. Imagine the biggest hair you've seen, and that is Clement. You'll recognize him. So we will be walking around during each of the practical sessions. Oh, let me slide over here so you can see their names. So we'll post this online. Oshin, Michael, Clement. All right. They will be at the lab sessions. They will be walking around. Their job is not to do your lab for you, but to answer questions to help you when you're stuck. The more stuck you are, the more you should have your hand up and be using that time. They are paid to be there for 3 hours to answer your questions. I have seen this succeed again and again and again. The only times I've seen this fail is when a student sits in the corner and struggles for 20 minutes to get some kind of for loop going, or to make some kind of histogram or something like that in MATLAB, and you're thinking, well, what's wrong? Is this person making stupendous progress, and we should just leave them alone, or are they stuck? And this unwillingness to ask questions, I hope you can get rid of it. I hope if you have a personality that makes it kind of, oh, I don't want to show that I don't know something, get past it. You're here, you're paying a lot of money to be here, ask questions and find out what's going on. I promise it will be easier later in the term the more you ask questions now. The labs will, mostly in this order, but not exactly in this order, be an intro to MATLAB, fitting probability distribution. So this is, like I said, the first 2 weeks, probably the most dry Please bear with it. Then we'll do background subtraction, some kind of segmentation, face detection, object recognition, Markov random fields. So this will be a bit of, I think we'll have a dynamic programming as part of it, and then Markov random fields. Face recognition, which is different than detection, tracking, image mosaics, and multiple images, so some multi-view stereotype things. All right. The coursework. I said 80% is the exam, 20% are these two coursework. So this one's 10%, this one's 10%. You'll have 10 labs. In the first, there's 5 labs, then a reading week, which is meant for you to be reading and catching up and doing assignments and things, and then there's another 5 weeks. From the first 5 weeks, one of these labs, I will ask you to write it up and submit it as your practical assignment for 10% of your grade. For the, I guess maybe it's more like these 5. And then from these 5, equally, I will ask you, I won't tell you now which one, but afterwards I'll tell you, okay, one of these is the one that you're supposed to write up and turn in for a grade. So there is, the deadline for this will be right after reading week for the first one. The deadline for the second one will be right after the Christmas break. Normally I try to assign it so that you can get it done before you leave for the Christmas winter break. Sorry, you guys are sitting low enough, you might not be able to see that. Let me sort of move this up so you can, oops, so you can see this. We have a slight deviation from the normal UCL late policy. So, generally no extensions. If you want an extension, like all institutions, you have to show a doctor's note, something saying, right, I really needed an extension and couldn't make the deadline. If you're within 24 hours late and we're doing electronic submission, so you'll be uploading a PDF. If you're within 24 hours late, you get 90% of the mark of the grade you would have gotten. 24 to 48 hours, you get 80% of it, and then later than 48 hours, you get 0%. I've had a few diligent students who were just very late. They felt swamped with other assignments, and I'd almost given up on them. But then they went ahead and did the assignment even though they weren't getting any credit for it because they wanted to make sure they understood. Very impressed, and those people did succeed, but I wouldn't recommend that strategy. Go ahead, get the points for the assignment by actually doing it on time. We'll talk about the assignments again when we actually agree and say, okay, lab number N is the one that you're intended to write up. But the idea is that you write it up by giving a short literature review, really just 1 or 2 citations, description of the techniques, say what was done, show the results that were obtained, show figures. So this will typically be described in fairly good detail in the assignment, saying, okay, we want you to show this plot, show this graph, plot this as a function of that. Critique. The idea is not to say, I wrote my algorithm and it is perfect. It's unlikely that it's perfect. Computer vision, magic number these days seems to be 70%. Most things we do kind of land there. So it's very important to know what are those remaining 30%. Where are things not going our way? Future work, so suggestions for how you would improve this algorithm had you been given, let's say, 3 months to work on it. And of course the code, so with some comments. So you're supposed to show your own work. I don't have a slide here on plagiarism. I don't like to dwell on it. There have been instances of plagiarism in the past. It is remarkable how many people think it's okay. Let's make it very clear, plagiarism is not okay. When you are submitting an assignment, you are allowed to say that I worked with this other person on my assignment. If you did work with someone, you should take that opportunity and write in that you worked with this other person on the assignment. If you really needed both of you to work together, it's slightly unusual, right? And then we can come to some sort of agreement about how the grade will be split between you, right? You won't get as much credit if as if you'd done it on your own, obviously, but at least you won't get into boiling hot water. Someone in this class last year plagiarized in a very sort of bizarre way, and it was a small miracle, but we caught it. And the person had paid their tuition, a lot of money, and ended up leaving the program. So don't do it. It's 10% of one grade in one of your classes, right? If really you really can't do the assignment, then you should consider dropping the class. You should consider taking a 0 for the assignment. You should definitely not consider copying someone else's work. I think that the lab is a great opportunity to talk to other people, to say, oh, what am I doing wrong? Can you help me out? Or raise your hand and get the TA's help. The practical assignment where you write it all up, that's really supposed to be you kind of working on your own. All right. There is a Moodle website, but I point to it from my homepage. So if you ever need to find it, you can search for me, Gabriel Brosto. You can also send me email if you have problems. Please put GI14 in the subject. So this is a bit of a flag for me, so I know to deal with your email. I get a lot of email, so I really recommend this trick with the GI14. And if you want to talk about things, then on Thursday after the lab is a great time to do that. So then we can schedule some time. Oh, they gave up. All right. So this is a fine time. Tell me you want to meet, or just come. My office is in Mallet Place Engineering Building. Everyone's been to Mallet Place Engineering Building. You know where that is? Yes. Good. Hi.
Hello. Sorry, there's a whiteboard right here. Hi.
There is a whiteboard.
Good. Sorry, I was just checking my lecture.
Sure. And of course, because of our high security, you can't get to my office directly. So you can get into Mallet Place Engineering Building by just walking in, but if you go up to the 6th floor, there'll be a security door. So my phone number 37291 to find me. Otherwise, I won't know that you're knocking. That actually spells, if you're American, you know what that means. You can spell draw1, D-R-A-W-1. If you need to try to remember it. All right. What is computer vision? Some of you already know full well. Some of you are coming from industry. Others seeing it for the first time. Basically, everything to do with the computer version of visual perception. We're trying to convert images and video, that's our input, into something useful, something meaningful, frequently high-level information. It is now, I can say, a full-fledged research field of its own, with big conferences every year, lots of amazing inventions coming out, and it's also got a massive following in industry. So you've got a small list here of Intel, Mitsubishi, Microsoft, Google, Toshiba, and many, many others that have started up a vision research group just for purposes of developing algorithms, developing models like the ones we'll be learning about here. There is huge money in this field now, and I mean everybody has this slide. Oh, my field is relevant, right? Okay, clearly, but really it's really taken off now, right? Mobile phones have cameras, and this has actually really sort of tripled the number of emails I get from people asking for advice, for input, for students graduating. Hello. So I think it is actually fair to say that there's going to be a lot more money sort of floating around for people who are good at computer vision. Classic old school computer vision was about reading people's address labels on envelopes. Also about dealing with military problems. So find the tank, right? Or count how many tanks are in somebody's, well, in this case, burnt out military. Computer vision doesn't have to be so about killing people. It can be about helping them. Oh, right, of course, because we're not on my laptop. Sorry. So what you're supposed to see here is a nice video of a scene at dusk with the car driving along, and the computer vision system is trying to figure out what does the sign say. Is it a speed limit sign? Is it some kind of warning? And this is the sort of typical situation in bright daylight, but obviously quite different is the appearance of things at night. So one of my dreams in the future is to write a research paper called Computer Vision in the Dark. Finding pedestrians so that you can stop the car in time before running somebody over. This is one of the holy grails in sort of computer vision for automobiles, and it's a problem that Toyota and Honda are constantly working on. It's interesting. You can find these situations where they will pay for research, even though they don't really believe in the research very much. They won't tell you that, but they'll pay for the research in a group because they don't want the other car company to get those results. And it's amazing. They have money for some things. They have a lot of money, and they're not afraid to spend it. Speaking of which, this was funded by Toyota, where we're detecting what is each object in the scene, and we wanted to label each pixel as such. So here we're labeling the street as a street, and the sky as sky, and cars as cars. So this was an automated system that was converting not actually images, but it's slightly misleading, but videos, and it was using just a cue of motion to do that semantic segmentation. Right, big goals of computer vision. There are really kind of four big ones, and then the rest are maybe arguably a little bit smaller. So recognition is a massive one, and that includes characters, faces, objects, and action recognition. So I have here a picture of Kinect. This was all fairly new. Everyone here has heard of Kinect? Yes, more or less. Good. So the technology behind the pose estimation and sort of the reason they packaged the Kinect the way they did is due to some very good friends of mine, and they worked in secret and did this wonderful thing using technology that we had been sort of aware of, and Jamie and I had worked on together, called random forests, which we'll get to later in the term. Wonderful technique that my research group continues to use to this day. I would say that now when I meet people at parties, this is sort of the example I give to say, oh, computer vision, what's that? And I say, well, if you've seen Kinect, that's kind of the thing. The other thing I tell people is I say, oh, you know how your camera can recognize, can detect faces, and then focus on the faces when you're about to take a picture. We'll talk about that algorithm as well. Reconstruction. So 3D reconstruction, even 2D reconstruction is a big part of computer vision. So we've got recognition, reconstruction. Here we've got an example of using a bit of structured light to estimate from this video sequence there, this kind of 3D output which we can rotate around to see from other angles. Sony's coming for a visit this Friday. They're very interested in these types of topics. This is, of course, very related to computational photography, which is a class that we teach in the second term. So if you go through this class, I think computational photography will be a little bit easier, but it's supposed to be it's a different topic in terms of focusing on the applications, whereas here we're focusing on the methodology. So recognition, reconstruction, tracking are sort of in my view, those are the holy grail problems of computer vision. Lots of tracking problems we can talk about. I'm sure you're acutely aware of them. Here I'm showing an example where I was tracking characters in stop motion footage to try to add motion blur as a post-processing effect. So motion blur is something that's normally missing from stop motion characters because, why? Very slow. Or not at all. That's right. Who said that? Yes, very good. So they do sometimes take stop motion puppets and put them on a motor so that they're actually spinning or doing something crazy during the exposure. But this lack of motion blur was the deciding factor actually for ILM deciding to make Jurassic Park using computers. They didn't really have many computers before then. They were just using them for kind of Photoshop operations. And when they added up it wasn't a creative decision. It was when they looked at the budget of how much money it would cost them to add motion blur to all the dinosaurs made using stop motion animation. They said, okay, actually it might be cheaper to just get some of these SGIs and make this one-off kind of computer graphics kind of dinosaurs. Navigation, right? Many people are using different Street View and equivalent kind of systems. Segmentation, enhancement, and synthesis. We will talk about all of these in due course. The other thing I want to sort of emphasize is the relationship between computer vision and other fields. Some of you are coming from these other fields, which is brilliant. You will hopefully recognize the connections yourselves. The only thing that may not be obvious here, HCI, human-computer interaction, right? And AI, machine learning, is we're sort of consumers of that, but increasingly these venues, these conferences, are also publishing vision papers, well, because we have the coolest data. Let's face it. Applications, robotics, sort of obvious. Actually, I used to be quite skeptical about robots becoming useful and sort of entering our lives on a daily basis. I always thought they were cool, but increasingly it's looking like sort of attempts to deal with the aging population and helping people live longer in their own homes is going to be all about robotics. Maybe not those robots, but in general robotics. Security, right? So lots of footage, lots of need to sort of watch our own citizens. Sometimes it's not just Big Brother. Sometimes it is, finding a lost child or something like that. And this is kind of going away as a problem because we're not writing with pen and paper as much anymore. But there are interesting applications. So, for example, one of the master's students from last year did a project with me and just submitted it at the end of the summer, where he was synthesizing handwritten notes in your writing style. You would write a bunch of samples of some text, and he could type in new text and synthesize it in your handwriting. So that way, if you wanted to buy something off Amazon and send a personalized note in your own handwriting, or if you're like me and have terrible handwriting, I can choose someone else's. That would be the idea. Augmented reality. It's funny. I got into virtual reality when it was just getting hot, and I thought that was the coolest thing. Then everything kind of cooled. We all realized the dream of Lawnmower Man and all that wasn't coming true. And then we kind of forgot about it. And then Google goggles came up, and everyone suddenly said, "Oh, do you know anyone doing augmented reality?" And so augmented reality is all about, well, they say it's about the content, but everybody knows it's all about how well you can register the display against the real world elements, right? It's no good if these brackets are pointing to the wrong building, or if they're floating and jumping around as you're looking through your goggles. So augmented reality is a wonderful area where computer vision gets used and a bit abused. Image retrieval is, people use image search now quite a lot. The trick is that I think we're going to start doing it more and more on our own images, right? Searching for photos in our own archives, whether it's for people or for things. We're trying to do some automatic selection of which is the prize-winning photo. I don't want to neglect medical imaging. Medical imaging in UCL is a massive group. One of the world-renowned groups in medical imaging is here. They're great at it, so people like Danny Alexander, Simon Arridge, and quite a few others. Dan Stoyanov will be sort of guest lecturing next week. You'll meet him. He does robot surgery and computer vision, so there are great medical applications, and of course industrial uses of machine vision in production, in exploration, in archaeology. Well, because we do reconstruction, recognition, segmentation. So these things are very important to those fields, and I've already mentioned sort of the military applications. I will just do this very briefly, so I won't actually go through the slides that carefully here. We really didn't have much computer vision before 1970s. Getting the real world into digital form and having a bunch of intensities for the pixels was not something that was easy to do. It was possible to scan an image. You needed a massive computer to hold a single image. There were these sort of discussions about, well, if we have a computer that can hold one image, how many computers will we need to hold a video, right? This world has changed drastically. So suddenly the amount of data is available that's available is massive. Now we're slightly limited by our ability to do something intelligent with it. Somewhat parallel processing is helping us go fast, but we still need to do the smarts, and that's what this class is largely about. In the 1980s, I think there was a very nice point where we were still very much linked with neuroscience. So David Marr, one of the sort of founders of computer vision, said, who was a neuroscientist in the UK, he said, well, I like trying to come up with models of how real biological brains work. But if I have a theory, I can't try it out, right? I can't actually grow an organism that works exactly according to my model. But I can write an algorithm and then find some expensive computer and try that out. And so machine vision was kind of born. It was from the same sort of time and place as artificial intelligence was sprouting. So in my view, there was a bit of a golden age when AI encompassed vision and speech, and then the speech people, because they're antisocial, went over there, vision people went over here, and now sometimes we meet up at conferences and sort of talk to each other or not. But AI and machine learning are, I think, part of the inspiration for vision, and so it makes sense that we're also part of the applications. 90s was largely about geometry, not exclusively, but that's where we were. And in the 2000s, the revelation that machine learning is very important here because we have all these alternate sources of information, large databases, if you're Google or Microsoft, or even if you are yourself, you can build a database of irises if you're doing that kind of project. Discrete optimization also has come into its own. One of the graduates from your class, I'll get to this when we do dynamic programming, made quite a bit of money by doing discrete optimization. So not while taking the class, right? But like 8 months after taking the class. Made a lot of money by applying a discrete optimization technique from this class for a commercial purpose. And it was really just textbook application. It was super easy. All right. And as I said, more large trends towards data sets that make things a little bit more constrained and less heuristic-based. I do want to do this because it will come back to it throughout the term. The dimensionality of the input. You have images which are potentially quite complex. How complex? This is why we're better than the speech people, by the way, because they just have 1D input. All right. You have a small VGA image, and nobody even has 640-480 images anymore, right? You just get HD images with even the smallest smartphone. If you only had 640-480 and you had 8 bits per pixel, right? So that means you have 256 gray levels in red, and again in blue, and again in green. Then you would have 640 by 480 by 3 channels. That's how many different pixels there are to think about, different intensity values. And you have 256 to that power. So this is, that number is in fact wrong. Yes, I've updated it today, so I actually remember. It's 2.1 billion.
2,220,000.
2.2 billion.
No, million.
Million?
2.2 billion.
According to the notes.
Yeah, 10 to the 2.2.
10 to the, yes, so we're talking about the exponent. 10 to the 2.2 million. Okay, good, thank you. Combinations. So the result is that almost none of the possible images in the world have been seen. You've only seen very small combinations of them. And it turns out that actually they're quite self-similar, right? There's a lot of blue sky, there's a lot of sort of faces in them. And so we don't, while this is the list of possible inputs that we might have, we only need to worry about a smaller combination of them. And so we're taking advantage of that in building our mathematical models, which try to constrain the space and say, actually, we don't have to be ready for every possible input. All right, I will jump to the beginning slide just to show you, and I won't do it on this screen, so let me blank this out. So our cable didn't arrive in the end. And I'm going to show you, and hold up the computer and hope that's enough. Right, that's not going to be enough. You're in Gordon Square, you know that. On Thursday, 2 to 3, you're going to the anatomy building. This would be a lot easier on the big screen, wouldn't it? The anatomy building is right there. So if you have trouble finding it, just remember that you're going out of Mallet Place. Picture going out of Mallet Place Engineering Building, turning left, going around the library, and then going into that little hallway, little alleyway. So it's the alleyway between the library building, so that's the Petrie Museum, and the building with the arch. That's the entrance. Don't try going in from Gower Street. To find the lab, just follow everybody who's leaving that lab. The thing I want to highlight is that the lab will be, except for this week, it will be in DMS Watson G15. If you're using the UCL timetable, you'll be able to find all your information there. This week, it's Chadwick B04. The UCL numbering scheme means B stands for basement. As you figured out, 105 stands for first floor, and G would be for ground floor. So this week, go to Anatomy B15, and then follow us at 3 p.m. as we go to the Chadwick building. Then on Friday, we'll be in the Mallet Place Engineering building. Final note, it was unavoidable. Next week, I will be away, but you will have guest lecturers who will fill the gap and will cover the material. It's the only week I'll be away. It's the only time. Otherwise, you should always come see me, ask a question. Thank you very much. See you on Thursday. Sorry, can I count how many people? I'll be counting as people go out.